The once great Pixar is in shambles. All their post-lockdown releases have been massive flops, losing Disney several hundreds of millions. But rather than admit that Pixar has a problem though, Bob Iger chose to blame Bob Chapek for this, claiming that releasing a couple of Pixar movies on Disney Plus during the pandemic re-educated audiences to stop seeing these movies in theaters. Well, that theory was just put to the test, and it did not go well, as even for a limited release, Soul tanked beyond words. During the lockdowns, Pixar's Soul, Luca, and Turning Red were all sent straight to Disney+, something Bob Iger incidentally signed off on at the time. But after that, the audience just didn't return to see Pixar movies in theaters, starting with Lightyear, a massive flop that lost more than $100 million all on its own. This perplexed both Disney, Pixar, and Hollywood at large, because Lightyear was based on a known IP, and not only that, it had lots and lots of diversity and inclusion and representation. Hell, they even counted the lines and everything to ensure that no white or male character get too many of them, so according to their metrics, Lightyear should have been a massive global hit. So what went wrong? Well, the industry quickly figured that, like good doggies, the audience had been house-trained to only see Pixar movies on Disney+. That had to be it. There couldn't possibly be any other reason. I mean, they even recast Tim Allen, as hearing the voice of a known conservative might be triggering. What more could they have done? Pixar head honcho Pete Docter also added that maybe they had expected too much of the audience, as the lack of Mr. Potato Head might be confusing. No, for real, he did say that. He told the Wrap, "I think probably what we've ended on in terms of what went wrong is that we asked too much of the audience. When they hear Buzz, they're like, great, where's Mr. Potato Head, and Woody, and Rex? And then we drop them into this science fiction film and they're like, what?" Of course, he said something else as well, which was much more revealing, namely, "We've done a lot of soul searching about that because we all love the movie. We love the characters and the premise." Well, there's your problem right there. The powers that be at Pixar loved the terrible characters in Lightyear, and they loved the even worse premise, which is fundamentally anti-family and not suitable for children. Yet they loved it. That the powers that be could ever love that movie, or even make it in the first place, only goes to show how out of touch with the audience Pixar has become. And Lightyear was the mask-off moment where the audience worldwide found that out. They would have found out even sooner though, if Soul, Luca, and Turning Red had actually been put out in theaters. Lightyear just so happened to be the movie where the subversive messaging went from implied in the subtext to being explicitly thrust in your face on screen. But that is for us to know and the industry to deny, so the main cause for Pixar's troubles, the industry trades agreed on Disney's behalf, was the boneheaded decision to put 3 Pixar movies straight to Disney+. What was Bob Chapek thinking? They're fixing it now though, as these 3 movies are now being released in theaters after all, in order, beginning with Soul this past weekend. The aforementioned Pete Docter was super excited for this, telling Daps Magic they're made to be seen on the big screen. Every frame has been poured over by the artists and technicians here, and it's a different experience. Hopefully, people have seen them on Disney+, and we're very thankful to have had that platform to release them on, because otherwise the pandemic would have put them on the shelf. Honestly, it might have been better if they were shelved. For good. Because the fact of the matter is that neither Soul, Luca, nor Turning Red were really anything that special at first glance. But the more you look into them, the more reasons you will find not to like them. In our previous video, I went through Film Threat Scoop about an experienced Hollywood screenwriter revealing how bad things have gotten within the industry, with young and narcissistically inclined writers and producers void of experience, either in Hollywood or in life at large, wanting to teach the audience some life lessons. This whistleblower said, "Suddenly, subtext and themes became the main point of discussing a project or IP. The first question in every meeting became, what can we say with this project, or what can we teach people with this story? Plot, character and audience were now secondary, and sometimes not even discussed. Take Luca for instance. I imagine that's what happened there. Trying to sell it via Draps Magic, Pete Docter said, Luca is kind of like going on summer vacation. Go out to the theater and spend some time in Italy. Sure, you go there in your mind, but you may come out relaxed. Or, alternatively, you may come out realizing that the whole movie is actually a coming out of the closet and proudly joining the LGBTQIAP+ community allegory, because that's what the subtext and themes of the movie are all about. Putting these movies in theaters now, even in limited release, will only serve to show audiences who may not have seen these movies before that even before Lightyear, Pixar had lost its way. The fact of the matter is that the Pixar magic left along with John Lasseter, who was Me Too'd out of the company. And interestingly, all of Pixar's top creatives followed him out the door and joined him in setting up shop over at David Ellison's Skydance. The last Pixar movie Lasseter worked on was Coco, and that was also the last Pixar movie to have that Pixar magic. Everything Pixar has released since has, to borrow a phrase from my neck of the woods, been one uninterrupted chapter of sorrow, and that chapter includes Soul, Luca, and Turning Red. Lightyear, again, was just the mask-off moment. But since that mask has come off now, why would anyone return to theaters to see more Pixar movies that are already on Disney Plus no less? This is no doubt why Soul couldn't even pull in $500,000 this weekend. Granted, it was only a limited release, so it was never going to do tens of millions or anything, but according to Bounding Into Comics, that's just $318 per theater, meaning just a handful of people went per screening, which is pitiful for even a limited release. The best thing that can possibly come out of putting these movies in theaters now is exposing this ridiculous notion that audiences stopped going to see Pixar movies because, like good Pavlovian doggies, they were trained to see them on Disney Plus at home for the drivel it always was. If there ever was anything to that excuse, it would have affected the other studios as well, especially those with streaming services, but nope. Disney were the only ones affected, and they were uniquely affected because all the good people are gone and only activists remain. As such, putting Soul, Luca and Turning Red in theaters won't change anything. Only ridding the company of activists can do that. To that end, the trades warn that later this year, as much as 20% of Pixar staff may be laid off. That would be a good first step. But only the first step. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.